All right. All right. Well, it's 5 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here. And you are all here because you're here to learn about or to just hear a little bit about how to support a child that is experiencing anxiety. And as an educator, I'm a high school administrator, and this is my 5th year in this role. I am definitely seeing how our youth are coming to school and in very high levels of stress, experiencing anxiety, panic attacks, um, even on certain occasions already, having some mania attacks where they start seeing things and start to hear voices. And as a person that has grown up with a mother that experiences anxiety, and then when I had my daughter around the age of 3, I noticed that she was also experiencing symptoms of anxiety. Hi, welcome, Sandra. Um, I started to make some connections and really learn a lot more about how anxiety, what is it, and how it shows up. And so the purpose of this masterclass really is to tell you a little bit about what anxiety is through my lens. Number 2, share my own experience and supporting my daughter. And number 3, what we can do, as adults to support. And so I appreciate the Sandra and Judith for being here. Feel free to ask any questions at any time, just so that this could be interactive, and we'll go from there. Are there any questions just to start us off? No? Perfect. Okay. So as some of you guys both already know me, but like I was saying, I have been in education all my life since I was 3, preschool, and now I became a teacher, and then now I've been an administrator for 5 years. And as a teacher, I always noticed how our students, those that were, somebody else is joining us, welcome, those students that really had, come here, Sophie. Come here, Elsie. I have my coworker's dog with me because I'm going to be taking care of her this weekend. So you might hear a little poodle in the background. She's, I think, a little bit ready to get out of the office. So I apologize for that. So in working with students, I noticed that certain experiences that they had definitely impacted their learning. It was very difficult for them to focus. It was difficult for them to do well, even when they wanted to, because they were distracted by perhaps what had gone on in their own personal lives. And those students that I work with, I work in the Bay Area in California. And many of the students in the high school that I worked with were unaccompanied minors who had literally migrated to this country alone without a parent, leaving from El Salvador, from Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico. And so they came in with a lot of trauma, and here they are coming to an American school, completely different system. There was a lot of anxiety that would show up. And so what I've come to understand about what anxiety is, it's that it's this energy, is this unprocessed trauma that lives in our bodies. And that anytime that we get our body, our mind senses that there's a danger or there's a threat to our survival, this alarm will go off. And that alarm is the amygdala in the brain. But this alarm goes off and we start to experience symptoms of anxiety. And I'm sure, come here, Elsie. I'm sure many of you have already either experienced them or seen them. It comes off as perhaps your heart beating super, super fast. Your legs are shaking. Some students, I notice, will start to breathe really, really fast into their chest, feeling like they're gonna, not like they can't breathe anymore. And this is very normal, because what happens when we are in a state of an anxiety attack is that our body, our brain is literally feeling like something is threatening our survival. And so the body goes into a stress response where it literally is trying to get us ready to either fight the threat to flee from the threat, run from it, or to literally freeze and hope that whatever threat is in our environment does not see us. And what I've come to understand about anxiety is that until we're able to heal that initial imprint or that initial wound that is there, anxiety will continue to come up as a reminder to prompt us to think about, not to think, but to prompt us to heal that energy that was repressed initially. So let me give you an example. Let's say a child had a really bad experience with a dog. They went out to the park and this dog out of nowhere came up, right? And to a child that can be very scary. So, and the child runs to mom or dad and is crying and, is trying to express the fear, right? But depending at that moment of how the adults, how the parents, how the mother, father react, we can either allow the child to truly just express and process that energy that was experienced in that moment, or as we often tend to do, because this is how we have been taught, to be like, oh no, mijo, right? It's okay, nothing's wrong, you're okay. And we close down the child's ability to process what happened in that moment. And then it becomes an imprint, or it stays in our body as energy that was never allowed to fully be processed. And in that, we start to disconnect from our bodies. We start to think like, oh, mommy, daddy, that's not okay. So we start to then live in our brain, which is a lot of what anxiety is. We're constantly living in our brain, and the number one job of our brain is to seek for danger and for threat. It has an on-off switch. On, I'm safe. Actually, on, I'm in danger. Off, I'm safe. I can thrive. I can relax. I can engage in learning. I can become curious. But when it's on, we're constantly surveilling our environment to see if there's a danger. And right now, with COVID, with politics, with everything that's going on in our society, even adults, even myself, we are on an on state. We are literally trying to ensure that we are okay, because there's just so much energy of fear around us that we're picking up on. So that is how anxiety, in many ways, anxiety is actually here to prompt us and to remind us to take that step and to truly go deep into that wound that was left so that we can heal it. And so in many ways, I see anxiety as a blessing to truly help us move along our journey of healing. And this came very, very dead on for me when I had my own children. Like I was mentioned earlier, my mom, no, I didn't know growing up, but my mom is a very person that suffers from anxiety. And now, as I have learned about it, I can connect the dots in terms of her childhood and how she was raised, and a lot of the trauma that she experienced. But what I didn't understand, and my daughter really helped me understand, was that the energy that she carried with her around anxiety and depression and other things really impacted me as her daughter, not knowing until my late mid-30s that I too became a person that was very, very anxious, that was always experiencing anxiety. And it took my daughter to really have me identify that. And my daughter, when she was around 3, ended up one night, she was having a lot of stomach pain, and she would wake up every 2 hours and just rock herself, and she'd go back to bed. And my husband and I didn't make anything of it. My husband's a nurse. But the next night it happened again. And that morning she woke up with purple and swollen wrists, and also her ankles. And so at that point, we took her into the ER, and they diagnosed her with some rare autoimmune disease. And all they said was, we have to monitor. We would take her in every week to get a urine sample to monitor her protein rates, or whatever that, all of that is. But eventually one day she woke up and her legs had red dots all over her legs. And at that point we were like, this is something more than what we're thinking. And what the doctor simply said again is that it's an autoimmune disease and it'll go away. And the only thing you can do is monitor it and give her Tylenol or for the swelling. At that point, and this was 3 years ago, she just turned 6. Something as a mother, we all know as mothers, if we're, mothers, like in our intuition, something is just telling us that there's something more here going on. And the doctor, was just saying, this is all it is. And at that point, I was also on my own journey of healing certain things that had come up in my relationship with my partner, and my experiences that I had with my partner's family. It really put a mirror to like some things that I needed to work on. And so I had already been working with an energy coach to, heal that. And I remember talking to my mentor saying, the best thing that you can do for your daughter is to just really work on yourself, on how you show up energetically, because she will feed off of your energy. And I didn't understand it then, but I was like, okay. And so I really tried to ensure that I didn't show up worried or because she would feed off of that. And so when that happened, I started to become aware. I didn't connect the dots till maybe about a couple months ago, where I was like, what was happening for my daughter at that time. My mother was living with me. My mother-in-law was visiting the United States. My sister-in-law was also visiting. And I'm not here to blame anybody, but just the dynamics in the house was really just stressful. And it was a lot of tension. And as a 3-year-old child, we don't have the vocabulary, right? We don't necessarily understand what's going on. And a lot of how we protect ourselves as children is just through our own intuition and through feeling energy. And what I now truly believe is that she was simply manifesting the overwhelm, the stress, the energy that was around her through these symptoms of anxiety and this autoimmune disease that the doctor diagnosed her with. And as I took my mentor's advice, and I was like, okay, I will continue to work on myself and know that if I can show up more grounded and in a calmer state, and, not to say that I can never be angry or never be anxious or never be sad, but at least model ways at such a tender age to show her how to process that instead of shutting down. Hey, it's okay. Come here, Elsie. Come here, Elsie. It's okay. Sorry. Elsie, it's okay. Come on. If I could do that, Elsie, it's okay. Come here, Elsie. Come here. Sorry, let me get her really quick. Come here, sit with me. Come on. So I'm babysitting her this weekend. Okay. It's okay. All righty. You're safe. I know. So when I was able to do that, and I started to notice a huge change in my daughter, she did not hit her head. She used to rock her a lot and hit her head. And what I've come to understand was that was her way of really coming back to a state of calm, what we tend to term as being regulated, being back in a state of ease, a state of calm. She would do that. And then, she still does it here and there. And that to me is just like a reminder, I need to work on regulating. And I can catch those moments now in the morning, as we're leaving the house. Sometimes I'm rushing and my body is in a state of we got to hurry, right? So I'm not calm, I'm not regulated, and she's in the car and she'll just start to hit her head, and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to get back to that. So I share all of that because I think as an educator and as a mother, I've come to understand truly do believe that the best thing that we can do for our children who may be experiencing anxiety, who may be experiencing depression, ADHD, is to truly focus on working on ourselves, because children are mirrors of the environment they're in, and they do pick up on energy. And so I wanted to share that with you, um, because often what I've come to see, especially as an educator and working with students and parents, is that often as parents, we come at it at an angle of trying to fix our child, trying to, take the child to the doctor. So yeah, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, something scary. Okay, you're right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. All right. I know you're hearing noise. You're hearing noise. You're hearing noise. So I did not have this plan where she would be, but here she is. Okay. Where I think, I see where parents will come in, and school has all these programs to offer for counseling and therapy, and your child speak to somebody. But what I often feel is, and they're great, don't get me wrong, but I often feel that the student sometimes, it's okay, sometimes even feels like there's something wrong with them. They're even left in a situation where they're more like, it's harder, right? Or it becomes like, oh my God, like I'm already anxious, I'm already depressed, and now my parents are sending me with the intention, right? Parents are very like, we need help, we're trying to support you. But often what I notice is that in reality, it's really looking at the environment, right? Looking at what is happening in this child's life that is impacting him or her to be experiencing anxiety. And when I'm talking about anxiety here, I'm really talking about chronic anxiety, because anxiety is actually very normal. There's nothing wrong with anxiety. It's our internal way of our body, of our internal systems. Can you give me a minute if you don't mind? Thank you. It's really our internal systems alerting us that there's a danger, and we need those systems to work appropriately. Because if they didn't, then we wouldn't know to run away from a danger, right? To flee, to fight back if we needed to. So anxiety is actually a healthy thing. It's just when it becomes chronic, and it kind of freezes our life, and we're now even scared of being around the company of others, the social anxiety. That's where we then need to start looking at what is happening in our environment. And sometimes this even comes, ancestrally, passed down, and I can speak to that because my mother, I don't blame her, because I know her childhood story, and I see where anxiety was so chronic in her life. And then I got it as her child, and then here I am passing it to my daughter, because there's no awareness of what the anxiety is here to inform us, right? Why is the anxiety showing up? Because there is wounding, there is trauma that has been passed down generationally down to us. And so what I want to share is, at this point, is my journey on how I started to be able to connect really back to my body. A lot of this work is embodiment work, is connecting safely at your own pace back to your body. And as I was sharing with you, with my mentor, when my daughter started to have these symptoms 3 years ago, I was doing embodiment work. I didn't know that's what it was, but we were working on really allowing me to come back to my body in a safe way, where whatever emotions I was feeling, sensations, when I experienced big emotions like perhaps anger, or big emotions such as fear, instead of closing down, I would be able to experience that in my body, and kind of titrate it over time. So allow more and more space in my body to be okay with those emotions that were coming up. And that literally, I'll be very honest with you, took me at least like a good year of doing this work of coming back to my body through tapping, shaking, and it was a process. It was a class for about an hour and a half every Saturday that I was doing with her. And once I noticed that shift and being more comfortable with sitting with uncomfortable emotions, with the uncertainty, with worry, when that happened, and then also, I'll be honest with you, with my environment changing too, my mom did move out of the house. She wanted to have her own place, and that helped me create more space for myself to truly focus on my own healing. Because as a daughter, I unconsciously took on being the firstborn of immigrant children. I unconsciously took on having to take care of my parents, having to be the translator. So I was parentified at a very early age, unconsciously not knowing. And so I didn't realize that even as an adult, when my dad passed away in 2011 and she came to live with me, that I was doing the same thing. I was continuing to reenact my childhood relationship with my mother of being the caretaker. And that was very taxing for me, having children and being a full-time working mom, that I didn't realize how toxic that was for my own journey to heal those wounds that were there from childhood. So when my mom left, it really allowed me to not project my anger and my fear towards my mom, which I was doing, and oh, I'm in a bad mood, or I'm upset because my mom didn't do X, Y, and Z, and I would get triggered. But when my mom was able to leave, I was really able to feel that I had more space to truly focus on myself and not have to be worried about that, because she wasn't in my space. And I don't know if that's coming off the right way, because I love my mother dearly, but her being in my space, I was in a survival mode. That's what was going on. I wasn't in a space where I could truly allow myself to get out of survival mode, so that I could do this work that was so necessary. And by not having her in my space, it opened up for me a window of truly being able to come out of survival and really start to make some connections and do some of that work that I've been able to do in a space where is much more conducive to my healing journey, if that makes any sense. And I continue to work on that. I know Judith, who's here with me, we continue to do a lot of that mending of ancestral trauma that really is manifested in anxiety, at least for me. And that's really what I would really like to share with you all, is that if we have children that are experiencing anxiety and depression, the best thing that we can do for our children is to truly just work on ourselves. And when we show up in an energy of joy, an energy of happiness, an energy of thriving and not being in survival, they will pick up on that. And that's not to say, I don't want to give off the wrong impression that it's not okay to have fear. It's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to be sad. It's not okay to have these other emotions. That those are very real emotions and necessary emotions. They're emotions that are telling us something about our environment, and something that like anger can pretty much tell us, like, hey, somebody's crossing your boundary. It's informing us of that, right? So it's important for us to express that as well, and model how to express that in a healthy way, because society has taught us that only certain emotions are okay to express, right? With our boys, it's anger, right? With our girls, I don't know if it's an emotion, but girls through my lens are pretty much taught to sacrifice themselves, right? And to people please, and so as parents, if we present something different, they'll be able to kind of break those patterns that have been so present in our lives, right? And so I'll leave it at that. And I know it's 5:25, and I don't know if there's any questions that came up, but I really just felt called to share that with you all, especially as we're navigating what we're navigating in these moments. I don't know if anybody has a question.
Yeah, Lili, I'm curious. So working with parents, we can't flat out say your children are your mirror. because most of the
Yes,
time they come in with a crisis.
right.
And so then you're trying to like calm down their nervous system, which is hard because they don't know those techniques that we know. So how do you work with parents with this work?
Thank you for asking. And that what I've been doing, because I am an administrator, and I've come to understand that sometimes I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels at school working with students, right? And this attention to like, oh, it's the students, and they're disrespectful, and they student, let's fix them and let's give them consequences. And I'm like, people, like, our kids, our students are just mirroring society, they're mirroring the environment. And like I said, I've come to understand that as staff, as parents, like, if we show up regulated, our kids are going to mirror that. So what I've started to do is to give presentations to parents, as Sandra has been a part of those presentations, to start to inform parents about how our nervous system works, how there's dysregulation and regulation, because I do think that part of us becoming aware is to understand, and to become informed about our nervous systems and how it works. And then using my own personal stories that I think people might be able to relate to, and making myself vulnerable and saying, I've been there. I've been that parent that has lost her temper, right? And this is what I've seen, what I've noticed. So that we don't want to shame parents. We don't want to guilt parents. We don't want parents to feel like they're the ones that cause this, because what's really happening is it's just generational, it's cycle, and there's nobody to blame for. I mean, we can go all the way back and trace it all the way back to perhaps colonialism, right? But really giving parents a safe space where they're not feeling judged, and if they can make that connection without them feeling, and we may not control that, right? That this is not your fault, but you have the power to change and to truly support your child. I think most parents do come around and are like, okay, this worked for her. She's been through it. Her daughter is much better, and as she changed, let me give this a try. Because what I do know about parents, every single parent, is that they love their kids and they're willing to do anything for their kids to make sure that they're better, right? That they're healthier, that they're happier, that they're joyful. And so I think I think about my mom often, and I know that my mom loves me and loves her children and would do anything for us. But I think the missing piece for my mom was not understanding that her own anxiety and her own depression and the symptoms that she felt were very normal responses to the childhood that she had. And I think if she would be able to make that connection, there would be such a huge weight lifted off of her shoulders. And she would hopefully then take that first step to say, okay, there's nothing wrong with me, right? Relief. And now let me step in and try to do some of this work that will allow me to heal my nervous system. And when you heal your nervous system, the anxiety, the chronic anxiety goes away. The depression, it goes away. But it's that awareness first, and allowing them to make those connections to anxiety being a manifestation of a lot of trauma that has happened in our childhood. I hope that answered the question, but that's kind of the way I've been going about it.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. I also see Maria. Thank you for being here, Ms. Romero. Maria, welcome. I don't know if you have any questions, but I'm so glad that you are here. And having said that, I will be starting a 4-week program for any parents, specifically mothers, that are interested in. And I'll be starting it in late October, and I'll be promoting it more. But the way that I've set this up, just to give you more information, is that it's a 4-week program and we meet every Friday for about an hour and a half. And I've kind of broken it down to where the first week we're really talking about what is anxiety, and really talking about how the nervous system functions. And then the other half, I really try to bring in the piece about starting to do embodiment practices, because that is where the work is. We can learn and understand it, but until we practice, connecting back to the body. And I was so stuck on that piece for years and years, reading self-help books, reading, taking courses online and understanding, right, the nervous system and trauma and how does it impact. And I understood it, but until I was able to actually do the practices and truly come back and connect to my body. You can have all the education you want, but it's the second piece of connecting it that is so important. So in this offering that I'm going to present, it's not only education, which I think is important, but also practicing the embodiment practices. And so the first week we're going to talk about what is anxiety, connecting it to the nervous system, the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in the body, connected from the brain, and it's connected to all our major body organs, and that plays such a huge role in the health of our nervous system. And then I'll be talking about in the second week, and we'll be doing more energy or embodiment practices. And then the third week, I do talk a lot about the role of food, healthy food, because I went through a detox in March, and at the end of that, I had never felt the way that I did, where I just felt so joyful and just so alive. And I do truly believe, because I've experienced it, is that what we feed our bodies can also actually impact our levels of anxiety, because our body's not meant to be eating processed food, and we eat so much processed food. And again, this is not to blame or to shame anybody. We live in a very busy world, a world where we're, as mothers, we go to work, we come back, we had dinner, children. To make home cooked meals healthy, it's kind of like, when do I have time for that? But being aware that, the impacts that processed food has on our gut, which has a huge connection to dopamine and serotonin and all these hormones that also play a huge role on our state of regulation. That is also another big piece. So I talk about that in the third week. And then in the last week, I truly focus the whole time. I kind of open it up for Q&A. And then we really do like a full long hour 15-minute practice with connecting to our body. And for me, that was definitely the first step, was to connect back to my body. And then I feel now I'm learning other ways to continue my healing, because I think that there are different modalities of healing. But for me, connecting to my body was the foundation to be able to allow myself to dive deeper and feel safe and have the space to be able to continue to do that work. So if anybody's interested, you'll probably get an email after this just sharing more information about it. But I'm just sharing my journey and hoping that I can support mothers, because I truly do believe that I'm doing this work from my own experience, but part of me is that little inner girl, that little child that wishes that her mom had gotten better. Because if my mom, and I'm getting very emotional, but if my mom was better, I feel like I just would have been able to have a better relationship with her and enjoy her and have more moments of joy with her. And instead, I've seen so much pain and so much worry. And as a little child, you don't want to see your mother in that state. And so this is where I feel like I'm so called to do this work, because just wanting children, including myself, and parents from the perspective of wanting to see their children better. So, yeah. I don't know if anybody has any other questions, but that's what I just wanted to share today. So thank you so much for being here. Yes, Sandra.
Can I say something? I just admire what you've shared, and knowing you for the past, couple months. It's been an amazing journey. I'm working on myself too.
Yeah.
It hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
I have a 17-year-old, and with the starting to recognize the feelings and the stress that I have also with my mother
Yeah.
um, inherited, because she was always an anxious person and still is. She's been through a lot, and um, it's a daily battle, but
Mhm.
I think I'm on the right path where I can, following in the steps of someone like you and everything I've read and listened to, it's going to get better because it's kind of healing your own wounds,
Mhm.
like you say, and in order to help my son. But sometimes I do kind of ask when, we want that part of us that says, okay, when is this going to happen? I'm calm. I'm okay right now. I'm not screaming. I'm not doing anything. But why is he acting like that? Why is he responding like that?
Yeah.
But I understand it's a process. And the more I do, the more I practice, I think he's going to feed off of it and understand that, we experience everything, all different types of feelings, anger, frustration, being, not having good days. So it's part of being normal. It's not, we have to deal with it. So I just want to thank you. And I feel so called for it too. I love what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing and just being so open and vulnerable about what you've been going through. And I can feel how you do know that doing your own work is going to help your son, but it also helps heal your mom. It also will help her. So sometimes we're the chosen ones in our lineage to just to bring that healing to our family. And yes, you're absolutely right. It is not easy work. I've spent days crying. I've spent days in a dark spaces where I'm just like, even I'll be very honest with you, even I'm not sure how long ago it was, but I do remember that's when the oh goodness, the whole Meghan and Prince William came
Mm-hmm.
out, and we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about how she was going through a lot when she was
Mm-hmm.
pregnant. And I remember my husband and I watching that and feeling so like I could connect with what she had gone through. And the next day, just waking up and just um, being in that dark space where I did have to share with my husband, said, there were moments recently where I felt like the pain was so much that it would just be easier to not be here. And the only thing that kept me um, from not falling deeper in there, where I'm going to start creating a plan, was my children, because the thought of me not being here and
Mm-hmm.
having my children alone is what just kept me. And it's not easy. It's hard. And that's why I think when you go through this, it's so important to have a community, because the worst thing for me is coming home after a long day of work and feeling like nobody in my house understood me. And there's certain things that just my partner couldn't understand, and I don't expect him to understand. But I'm so grateful that I was able to seek communities of women where I could just show up. And if I said something, it was just like, yeah, we get you. I didn't have to expend energy on trying to convince somebody. And that in and of itself was just so healing, because I'm like, I'm being seen, I'm being heard, and I don't have to convince anybody or prove that this is what's happening. I don't feel like I'm going crazy. And that to me has also been a very key part of my healing journey, is having those spaces to feel validated, even though I don't always want to have outside validation. I want to give my own validation to myself. Um, but it's a journey, and that to me was very, very important. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing.
Yeah. To know that we're not alone,
Yes.
everyone's going through it. And building community will just even make, uh, I guess the world with more peace.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll keep working on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much. Well, I don't know if there's any other questions, but I truly do enjoy just you ladies showing up and just allowing for this space and just to talk and for me to share. And hopefully when this gets sent out, just it inspires or, or provides that space for other women to feel like they're not the only ones, like you said, Sandra, right? Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's any other questions. It's been 40 minutes and I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but if not, thank you so much. Yes, Judith.
No, thank you. And Maria, she's a dear friend of mine. She's
No.
probably running around with her twins. So
I get it. I get it. And thank you for inviting Maria and thank you, Maria, for showing up. And thank you, Judith. It means so much that you just showed up.
she
It
just sent
really
a message.
did.
Yeah.
Yes, I see. I see. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. And yeah, maybe we can talk about just how to continue to support, the communities that we work with, right? There's so much, I don't want to say need because I'm not here to, fix anybody or rescue anybody. I'm very aware that that's not a role that I want to step into, but just creating those spaces for our sisters, that just need that space, just to be in a space where they can know what's already in them, just step into it, right? So thank you all so much for being here and have a great weekend. Okay.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.